This week is stacked with Xbox releases, but Xbox still dropped another killer sale to drain all of our wallets. We're talking AAA hits up to 90% off, and even games that are cheaper than the price of a cup of coffee. Yes, this sale is certainly one that's pretty unmissable. Before we do dive in though, I do give away a free Xbox game every single week on these sales videos. All you have to do is comment below and you're automatically entered. Congratulations to last week's winner, just hit me up on our awesome Discord server and I will get that game right over to you. With that though, let's dive right into the fantastic sales coming our way for this week. First up, I do highly recommend that you pick up and step into the shoes of a late night radio DJ in Killer Frequency. This is a game that actually blends retro vibes with some very tense horror tinged decision making. You're not just spinning records, you'll also have to be guiding callers through terrifying situations, making choices that also determine who lives and who doesn't. The game really does thrive on that atmosphere though, so you can expect some neon soaked visuals, a synth heavy soundtrack, and also dialogue that drips with so much tension. The clever mix of puzzles and branching conversations really keep you engaged, and each run can really play out differently depending on your choices. At £6.29 after a generous 70% discount, it's a unique narrative thriller that feels very fresh and also memorable. Realism has always been Kingdom Come's calling card, and the sequel really doubled down on it so easily, and that's why it's my favourite game of 2025. Gone are the fancy tropes, and instead this is a medieval Bohemia at its most grounded. You will once again play as Henry, navigating a war-torn land where every fight does require your skill, stamina, and patience. The detail in this one still is utterly staggering, and I'm still so surprised with the amount of stuff that I'm coming across to this day. This isn't an RPG that holds your hand either, but one that really rewards careful play and attention to the world around you. At £42, even after a 30% discount, is not exactly a budget pickup this week, but then again, it's still the lowest price this game has ever been so far this year. It's easily my game of the year for 2025, even though I did adore Clair Obscur Expedition 33, but that's really because I do love that medieval setting. Dungeon crawlers don't really get much love these days, which makes Operencia the Stolen Sun a real rare treat. Inspired by classic grid-based RPGs, but with a more modern coat of paint, it mixes first-person exploration with turn-based combat, and it makes it incredibly strategic but yet accessible for newcomers. The setting is steeped in so much Central European mythology, giving it such a refreshing twist compared to that usual fancy fare. You'll encounter stuff like folklore legends, solve some pretty clever puzzles, and then manage your party through increasingly tricky encounters. It has a hefty 70% discount this week, cutting the price down just £7.50. This is a fantastic pick, especially if you miss the charm of old school dungeon adventures but want them with that modern polish. Few RPGs have ever had the staying power of The Witcher 3, and for me personally, this will always sit as the king of RPGs. Its sprawling open world still brims with so much rich storytelling, memorable characters, and choices that do carry so much weight. The complete edition is on sale this week, and it does pack in both the massive expansions, that being Hearts of Stone and Blood and Wine. These expansions alone have over 20 hours of content, making them almost kind of like standalone games themselves. I know that combat was always a gripe for many within the Witcher games, but it's always been refined over time, and I really don't mind it that much. Of course, the visuals are also a standout now, as we do have a native Xbox Series X and S patch, and it's just so much fun going back and experiencing the monsters and the incredible side quests. It's £7 thanks to an 80% discount, and that's just such incredible value for your money. Risk of Rain 2 was a game that I really never had much high expectations when jumping into it for a first time. I jumped into it now about a couple of years ago, and I was hooked upon getting into it. In that time, it's become one of my favourite roguelikes, and now I understand why so many hyped it up within the gaming sphere. This one basically drops you and up to 3 other friends in randomly generated arenas, where you have to basically fight off hordes of different alien sort of beings, and once you defeat a certain amount of them, a portal opens and you progress onwards. It is a fairly simple premise and roguelike loop, but the gameplay gets incredibly complex with the amount of builds you can make, the tons of items that you can get given, and the lovely procedurally generated lands that you'll have to explore. It's one indie I will always heavily recommend, and for just under a £5, it's one that I know you will definitely get hooked on, and don't let the art style really put you off. Roguelike dungeon crawling usually means real-time chaos, but Crown Trick actually twists expectations by making everything turn-based and also grid-based. Enemies in this game only move when you do, and it really transforms every single room into a more tactile puzzle. It's not about quick reflexes like other RPGs, but more about the foresight, the planning, and then making clever use of your different abilities. The visuals, as you can probably see, are quite colourful and whimsical, almost kind of storybook-like in their design, but the challenges lurking inside those labyrinths are no joke here. Bosses in particular do demand some smart play and creative use of your very own arsenal. Combine that with a system that also lets you acquire powers from fallen monsters, and every run feels incredibly fresh and strategic. Right now, the game is only down to £4, and that's an absolute steal, especially if you like your roguelikes with some more thought instead of frantic moments. I have to say, this sale seems quite heavy in terms of its RPG focus, but I really don't think that's a bad thing considering this next game today. Outward does the opposite of the usual RPG tropes. You basically start as a very regular traveller, just trying to survive in a harsh, unforgiving world. Things like hunger, fatigue, and even the weather can really kill you just as easily as the monsters here. Combat is also quite deliberate and challenging. It's not a Souls-like, but it can get quite difficult, and what really does set it apart is the emphasis on your preparation. Obviously, planning your gear, knowing your route, and understanding the dangers ahead do matter just as much as your real skill in battle. The Definitive Edition does bundle in all the extra content, smoothing out the rough edges, and does expand the adventure further with a ton of additional quests. With an 85% discount, is a real easy recommendation for this week, and is one RPG that still heavily goes under the radar. Rollerdrome arrived back onto Xbox a couple of months ago now after being delisted for quite some time, and to be honest, I'm so glad that you all get to experience this awesome game once again. To give you a bit more of an idea about this one though, it's an arcade action gem that feels like a hybrid between Tony Hawk's Pro Skater and Max Payne. Yes, that does sound like a pretty odd mix. It does throw you though into an arena where every dodge, jump and trick is fuel for your firepower, and as the time slows you will land some stylish mid-air headshots and so much more. Of course, it's very bold, fast and full of flair, with a really cool comic book aesthetic that makes every moment pop off the screen. What I love most about it though is just how deeply skill-based it can get. You can feel yourself getting better with every single attempt, mastering the flow between skating and shooting. At just £6.24 thanks to a 75% discount, it's a relative bargain in this week's sale. Now, in some fantastic news, I've just launched a brand new and completely ad-free website packed with loads of news, reviews and updates surrounding the Xbox ecosystem. To celebrate, I will be giving away a free copy of Metal Eden, the brand new frantic FPS, when you basically join our newsletter. All you have to do is just head over to the link below and sign up and you're automatically entered. If you also want to become a member for the website, you can also get access to ad-free videos, discount codes, exclusive giveaways and so much more. Even if you're not interested in a membership though, a quick subscription down below really does help as we aim towards 100,000 subscribers by the end of 2025. I want to thank you all for your continued support so far this year, and I can't wait to bring you even more content. With that though, let's jump right back into the week's best deals that you cannot miss. If you've ever wondered what a Souls-like set in deep space would feel like, then Dolmen answers that real question for you. This game actually delivers a gritty Souls-like experience in a setting that feels ripped straight out of a Lovecraftian space opera, so if you're into sort of sci-fi horror games or punishing gameplay, then this might be the one for you for this week. Combat in this one though does lean heavily on switching between melee and also ranged elemental weapons, and the stamina energy management really keeps you alert. The game though is pretty far from perfect, but there's a real rough charm here that does remind me of why I love these sort of weird and niche games. Not everyone will click with this one, especially if you're looking for that AAA polish, but I do appreciate the ambition and the haunting atmosphere. If you're a fan of games like The Surge or even Hellpoint, Dolmen is definitely worth the gamble, and you might be surprised by how much this one will really stick with you. Pure chaos is the best way to describe Just Cause 4, and it's unbelievably good. Once again, you'll be playing as Rico Rodriguez, and you'll be parachuting, grappling, and windsuiting your way across a massive sandbox world where explosions are less a possibility, and to be honest, more of an inevitability. The Gold Edition, which I'm highlighting, does make everything even sweeter though, by bundling all of the extra DLC expansions, so that means weapons, customization packs, and already so much more into that ridiculous full-blown mayhem. The story is okay in this one, but to be honest, it's the freedom to cause the carnage which makes this game shine and not the overall narrative. Usually all of that content would demand a pretty big price tag, but now it's down to just £7.50. I will state to you though that this game is still 30 FPS on the Xbox Series consoles, which is a slight letdown, but don't let that put you off as it's still an incredibly fun experience. Dredge really needs no introduction, and is simply one of the best games that's on Xbox Game Pass right now, especially within the indie scene. If you're unfamiliar though and haven't heard me gushing about it in previous videos, Dredge is a neat little indie fishing game that's set in a Lovecraftian horror universe. As the new fisherman in a mysterious coastal village, you're essentially tasked with providing food for the Greater Marrow, while unraveling the mystery of the unsettling fog which plagues the region. The primary gameplay loop though is basically finding fishing areas, catching new fish species, finding parts, and upgrading your boat so you can essentially catch more fish. While this is a very simple thing, it's very enthralling because the setting is so beautiful and it's really fun. If you don't have Xbox Game Pass, it's only £12 this week, and that's well worth the cost of admission. Now, here's a sleeper hit that I really did enjoy, and I just had to shout out about it this week. Teslagrad 2 is a hand-drawn, physics-based Metroidvania, and right now it's down to £2.50, which is wild for something so bloody polished. In this one, you play as a young girl that's stranded in a mysterious Nordic-inspired land, and you'll be using electromagnetic powers to basically traverse beautifully illustrated environments. Again, this is a game with no dialogue, which I did really love, as it really does let the world around you tell its story through its visuals, puzzles, and its atmosphere. Of course though, with that, the platforming does have to feel fluid, and it does, and there's a great rhythm to just how you unlock the different new movement tools and backtrack through the previous areas. It's a more short and sweet experience, but it is full of smart design, so if you enjoy games like Ori or even Hollow Knight, this is a great pickup and one that I easily recommend. At first glance, Gleamlight looks like a stained glass window that's come to life. It has an art style which really hooks you with its minimalist glowing visuals, and it does give the entire adventure a sort of dreamlike quality. There's no HUD, no dialogue, and barely any tutorials. Instead, you're actually left to interpret the world and the mechanics for yourself. Combat in that case alongside the platforming are pretty simple but elegant, emphasizing atmosphere over its complexity. It does feel more like an artistic journey than a traditional action platformer, which will either captivate you or kind of frustrate you depending on what you're looking for. If you do enjoy discovering worlds though with little hand-holding, it has that very own charm. At £2.24, it's a small gamble that's definitely worth taking if you want something different, quiet, and visually striking within your Xbox library. If Diablo-style dungeon crawling really does appeal to you, then I highly recommend Warhammer Chaosbane, as it delivers a sort of hack and slash fix within the iconic Warhammer fantasy universe. In this one, you choose from several different characters, each with their own abilities and playstyles, and then dive headfirst into hordes of chaos forces, looting and leveling as you carve a bloody path through your different dungeons. The Slayer edition also adds all of the extra DLC with some additional heroes and also expansions, making this the most complete package available on the Xbox marketplace. It's fast-paced, court-friendly, and really scratches that action RPG itch without demanding dozens of hours of the usual grinding. As this bundle is packed, it would usually command a pretty expensive price point, but is currently just £3.34. If you're a fan of loot-heavy action, or if you're someone just looking for court fun but on a budget, then this one is an easy recommendation. So what game are you looking to pick up this week? You'll have to let me know in the comments below. Do remember to also check out our website and do sign up for that newsletter if you want to enter for a chance to win Metal Eden, and also do become a member over there if you do want some more ad-free videos, discounts, and so much more. Whilst here though, and if you do want to check out some more awesome Xbox content, check out the video on screen now. I recently covered Frostpunk 2 as it's coming to Xbox Game Pass, and I have a ton of thoughts and showed you the performance that's going to be available on the Xbox Series X and S consoles at launch.